Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the bets that you should make for this upcoming UFC London card. And I think there's some pretty really good value bets on this one. Like first we're gonna go from 15 up. We're gonna do all 15 fights. We're gonna talk about which bets you should do, which ones you should not do. We're gonna look at them. Looking at the Jafel Filho Daniel Barez fight as a whole for like a straight money line isn't great. It's basically a pick'em fight. But if you go to more wages and you go to like method of victory, Daniel Barez by points plus 280. Jafel Filho by points is 280, which I wouldn't bet a decision for Filho, just because he only has one decision win on his record. Has been submitted twice, but he has 13 finishes. This guy is an absolute finisher. Either way you look at it. Is 30 years old. Daniel Barez is 34 years old. He has 13 finishes as well. Has been submitted twice, like I said, or also has 3 decisions. Again, he has 6 submissions and 7 TKO or KO, victories. And again, Jafel Filho by submission is a plus 430. And Daniel Barez by submission is a plus 500. Both by finishes, like with punches. Jafel Filho by KO or TKO, and Daniel is 600. Jafel is 550. Now, again, that's very, very interesting to me because, gosh dang it. Just because, again, they're both really, really good finishers. Personally, I think Jafel Filho will win this fight. I actually think he submits him, so that's a plus 430. But if you like Daniel Barez, there is a lot of good value. Plus 280, plus 500, plus 600. If you think he's going to win by decision, submission, or TKO, it's a plus 600. Again, some very, very nice. If you think it's going to be a TKO or KO round 1, round 2, round 3, there's really good odds over there. If you think it's a submission in round 1, 2, or 3, some even better odds there, honestly. If you think, how do you think the fight's going to end? A submission, a KO, or points? TKO or KO is a plus 270. So there is a lot of value in that fight, just looking at it. Next, you go to, I believe the next fight is Shauna. Go back more. Yeah, Bruna Brazil versus Shauna Bannon. I see a lot of people not really wanting to pick Shauna Bannon. I picked her when I broke the fight down. I like her a lot in this particular matchup, and she's a slight underdog at plus 132. Method of victory, Bruna Brazil. Again, her last fight, she fought Denise Gomez, who honestly kind of is shocking everybody right now. But Shauna Bannon, goodness. She has a lot of decisions, 1 TKO finish, 2 TKO finishes, 3 decisions. And the last person she fought, Mina Gruzander, Jesus. She went 8-3 in her amateur career. She is 4-0 right now, or 5-0. Again, I like her. She's not a big finisher. She is a decision person. So Shauna Bannon by points is plus 190. If you like Bruna Brazil, betting wise, 8-3. She has 5 finishes. Has been finished by punches 3 times. Again, she has 2 submissions, 3 TKO or KO wins, but also 3 decisions for herself. So if you go Shauna Bannon by points is plus 190. If you go Bruna Brazil by points is plus 160. Again, there's a lot of value in finishes with these girls. Bruna Brazil by submission, 850. Shauna Bannon, 950. Shauna Bannon by submission, 1900. Bruna Brazil, 420. Again, I like Shauna Bannon. Whichever you choose to do, will the fight go the distance? It says no, plus 164. If you go over under, the under is under 2.5 rounds is plus 210. So again, there's a lot of good value with that fight. A lot of good value. Next, we go to Chris Duncan versus Yanel Ashmez. Hopefully, something like that. I have Yano winning this fight. I think Chris Duncan's chin is going to become a problem. Omar Morales, who is no longer in the UFC, looked really, really good against Chris Duncan, especially in that first round. And odds-wise, again, street money line, they have Yano is an underdog, which I think is kind of weird. But Yano Ashmas by TKO or KO is a plus 310. Yano by submission is a 750. Chris Duncan by points is 350. Chris Duncan by submissions 900, and Chris Duncan by TKO or KO is 200. I guess they figure that Chris Duncan's gonna strike a lot with Yano. If that's the case, I like Yano a lot at plus 310 as finishing with punches. I think maybe he could hurt him and submit him, but I think he finishes Chris Duncan. Submission is probably the right one to go, honestly. Yano Ashmas by submission is a plus 750, but I could see him finishing him KO or submission. I'm very curious to see. I wish they had a KO. I guess not, though. Either way, I have Yano Ashmas winning this fight. I think he finishes him. Again, like I said. Then Ketlen Vieira versus Pannie Kianzad. Pannie Kianzad is a slight underdog at plus 128. Again, method of victory. If you go and look at both of these girls, Ketlen Vieira, 13-3, some pretty good, wins in there. 4 submission, 2 by TKO or KO. But you go to Pannie Kianzad, she has more fights, but she only has 3 wins by TKO or KO. But she also has 13 wins by decision. So if you look on Pannie Kianzad by points of plus 190, the odds make it seem like they think Ketlen Vieira is going to win by points at plus 125. And Pannie Kianzad has been submitted twice. Ketlen Vieira has 4 wins by submission. She has 6 finishes out of her 13 wins. Again, I'm not really for sure if this fight gets a finish, but the money would be on Pannie Kianzad winning by points at plus 190. This would be a really, really hard one to do. You could do this. Pannie Kianzad by KO or submission is a 700. Ketlen Vieira submission or on points is a favorite. Ketlen Vieira by KO or submission is a plus 380. Pannie Kianzad by KO or on points is plus 135. So you could maybe parlay a couple of them, but there's some pretty good bets on this one. This is one where either know what you're betting or just don't bet, because that's a weird one for sure. But yeah. And then next is Bryan Barberena versus Makhmud Muradov. Bryan Barberena, obviously 18-10. Makhmud Muradov, 25-8. Has been submitted a couple times. Has had some cardio issues a few times in his career. Has 17 wins by TKO or KO and 3 wins by submission. Has been submitted 3 times. I do not see Bryan Barberena submitting Makhmud Muradov at all. I don't see that happening. If it does, good for him. I don't see it happening. Does have 11 wins by TKO or KO, 2 by submission. Okay. Again, I like Makhmud Muradov in this one, especially because Bryan's very standing with him. The one thing that I could do and I could see is Muradov slowing down a little bit, and when he slows, Bryan typically gets a little bit better. But I still think Makhmud Muradov is going to be a little bit of a better grappler than Bryan Barberena, and seeing Bryan getting submitted in the last 2 fights is probably going to make him want to try to submit him. So you go to method of victory, and Makhmud Muradov by submissions 1100. That seems a little crazy to me. I know he doesn't have a whole ton of submissions, but that seems a little nuts. Makhmud Muradov by TKO or KO is a plus 160. And Bryan Barberena by KO or TKO is 550. Bryan by points is 700. Bryan by submission is 2400. That seems nuts. If you think there's going to be a submission or a KO any rounds, there's some like submission round 1, 1700. I think if there's a finish, I think it'll be in the second or third round. Round over under, it's basically a pick 'em. Not really, if you pick a round that you think it's going to end, you think it's going to end in the second. You think it's going to end in the second round, there's a plus 380. You think it's going to end in round 3, is a plus 800. That's a good bet to do. Because even if you do round 1, bet is a plus 210, that's still a good one. I think it's going to end in round 2, honestly, just because of Makhmudmuradov's finishing ability. We also seen him beat Andrew Sanchez, I believe, in the second or maybe the third round. But I like Makhmudmuradov in that fight for sure. Next, we have Mick Parkin versus Jamal Pogus. Jesus. Mick Parkin, this is going to be a hard one to do. 6 finishes, 1 by submission, 5 by TKO or KO. Jamal has way more fights, 13 total to the 6 there. Has been submitted twice, has been finished with punches once. He has 5 finishes out of his 10 wins. Interesting. So again, you go over and you look at those odds, and they have Mick Parkin as an underdog at plus 132. They're going to be striking, I would imagine, a lot in this fight. And you have Jamal Pogus by points plus 200, Jamal by TKO or KO plus 280. Jamal by submissions 1100. I don't see him getting a submission, but I actually think Mick Parkin wins this fight. I thought he was going to win by like a submission, but he doesn't have a ton. I thought he could hurt him, wear him out, and get a submission. Points is a really good one because it's a plus 700. Even TKO or KO is a plus 380. So there's some really, really good value in that bet. And then you go to how the fight end. I mean, there's some really good ones here, submission or points. Submission's the way to go on that one, but yeah. Over under, will the fight go the distance? Yes, is a plus 120. Fight to start 2. It says no. Fight to start round 3. They don't see that fight going to round 3. I mean, it's minus 132 to minus 102. The biggest odds on this is fight to start round 2, and it's a plus 235. So again, some really, really good bets on that one. And then you go over to the main card. We're going to skip around a little bit. Josh Culibao versus Lerone Murphy. Josh Culibao is a plus 122 underdog, which I think is a little nuts, to be honest. Josh Culibao, method of victory. I think he wins by points. I could see him getting a submission, which is plus 1,300, just because I think he gets a little tired. The biggest bet here for me is by points. Josh Culibao with his style, forward pressure, Lerone starting slow. I think he can win this fight by points, and that's a plus 310. Incredible. Now, they do have some specials here to where they think either fighter to win in rounds 1 or rounds 3, plus 220. Josh Culibao to win in round 3 to start. Again, there's some really good ones. Lerone Murphy to win by submission, and the one in the first 30 seconds of round 1 is a plus 20,000 odds. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And then I think the last one we will really talk about is Marcin Tybura and Tom Aspinall. I think there's some really, really good odds on here on this one. Tom Aspinall by submission, TKO, or points. They think it's going to be a TKO or KO, which if it does, it's going to be early. If it goes past the 3rd round, I like Tybura by points plus 1,500. I don't think Marcin Tybura is going to finish Tom Aspinall. I think if he can get on top of Tom Aspinall, he can do some damage. The biggest one here is, does Tom Aspinall submit Tybura? Maybe. Let's see how many times Tybura has been submitted in his career. That's an interesting one. Let's see. Marcin Tybura, 24 wins, 7 losses, never been submitted. Okay. He has been finished by punches 4 times in his career, but hasn't been finished with punches since 2019. So, okay. Interesting. Tom Aspinall has only lost by points, I believe. He had 1 loss by submission, 1 loss by TKO or KO. And that was the knee injury by Curtis Blades. Illegal elbow lost that one and was heel hooked by Stuart Austin in 2015. So again, I like Marcin Tybura by points plus 1,500. If Marcin has never been submitted, that doesn't mean he can't be submitted, of course. I just think he's really, really good on the ground. And the biggest odds here for me, honestly, is the Marcin Tybura by points or Tom Aspinall by points, just because Marcin Tybura is being stubborn. Some really, really good bets here. Plus 1,100, plus 1,500. That's some really, really good betting. And there's some other really good ones. We're not going to go over every single one like I originally said, just because, But again, pick a couple of those odds. Put some money down on them. There's some really good, really good bets to make on this card. And as always, subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, peace.